Why don't we talk about an exclusive on another console, the Nintendo Switch? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom this morning came in, got about 10 minutes of gameplay from Nintendo, from IG Onuma, the kind of creative director of the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I want to talk about it. So I'm pulling from Ash Parish at The Verge. Tears of the Kingdom is only a scant 44 days away, and to celebrate the game's impending arrival, Nintendo dropped a 13-minute mini direct featuring gameplay and a sneak peek at Link's new abilities. One of the biggest, most interesting features shown off today was Link's new Fuse ability, whereby he can take everyday objects like a log or a rock and mash them together to create weapons. It was fascinating watching Enuma, create useful weapons on the fly, and his demonstration of creating a homing arrow by fusing a monster eyeball with an arrow was seriously impressive. But be careful, weapon degradation, that mechanic from Breath of the Wild that players either wildly loved or viciously hated, is back with Link's stick swords breaking after only a couple of swipes. Ultra Hand is another of Link's abilities and assists him in creating larger objects beyond weapons. I'm going to jump ahead because the video, if you're watching live, is talking about Ascend. Let's see, where's that here? Ascend, or no, this is called Recall. It seems to allow you to rewind time for a certain object. In this case, Enuma used Recall on a rock that fell from an island and basically used the rock like a fancy elevator. Once he was high enough, Enuma busted out Link's trusty paraglider to reach the Sky Island of his choice. Enuma also hinted that there are other ways Link can reach the Sky Islands, and I'm deeply curious to see what weird contraptions players will make. To circle back to finish out about Ultra Hand, that car we saw in one of the Tears of the Kingdom's earlier trailers wasn't something that Link found in the wilds of Hyrule, but something that he made himself. He'll also be able to craft boats and flying contraptions out of junk lying around. And then finally, the other feature that they showed off is a feature called Ascend. It's the last ability that Enuma let us see. It's basically like the escape rope from Pokemon. Are you in a cave? Would you like to get out of it? Hit Ascend to essentially teleport to the cave's roof. I have full confidence that the Zelda speedrunning community will use Ascend to break the hell out of this game. I can't wait. Cayman, you famously not a huge fan of Breath of the Wild.
It's true. It's
true. You thought it was a fine game.
That was a fine game. Yeah.
It very much, to paraphrase you, very much totally new Zelda game. Doesn't have the dungeons. It felt like a adjacent to Zelda, a new Zelda, whereas you prefer the older Zelda. True or false? Am I quoting you correctly?
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty spot on.
What do you think about this?
So a couple things. First is I think one of the biggest reasons I disliked Legend of Zelda the first time was I was not a huge fan of the weapons just constantly breaking, and me being like in the middle of a fight and being like, well, I guess I'll just die here because everything I've got is broken.
Sure.
So when they first show off the fuse ability, I was like, holy hell, okay, this looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like this is like a genuinely incredible feature that like has me back on track.
Yeah.
But here is, I think, the biggest problem. And literally the only problem I have, because this all looks amazing to me.
Yeah.
How the fuck is this going to run on the Switch?
It's probably going to run silky fucking smooth somehow. Because Nintendo is magic.
I mean, yeah, I don't disagree. I'm also sorry, my camera, for some reason, every time we have like video pulled up, I'm like, just keep popping in and out. I don't disagree, but like the thing is already when we think about the first Breath of the Wild, like just the way that game functioned, it's like it was pushing the Switch to its absolute maximum.
That puppy got warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I had a brand new Switch and that thing was like on fire if I played more than like 2 hours of Breath of the Wild.
Sure.
And I was like, okay. So like I like just played in handheld mode, or I played not in handheld mode. Just so I didn't I was like one of those, like, if I just think that it's not going to explode, it won't explode kind of situations.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, that is my biggest worry is like, okay, what are they sacrificing to be able to do all this other stuff? That is, I think, where my headspace is. I definitely, like, watching what we saw today actually now has my excitement for this game. Like, I'm actually excited about this game. Whereas, like, I definitely wasn't going into this, But like I definitely have like a bit of hesitation to be like, it is a little bit worrisome that like what are they going to have to sacrifice to be able to include all these mechanics. And I honestly, I know there's going to someone out there, probably Constantine is out there listening and is very mad at me when I say this. But like I hope the thing that they sacrifice are those like 150 fucking shrines.
No, I agree. I hope that this game has traditional Zelda temples and not the shrines. Like if they keep some shrines, I'm fine with that. But I think I will be surprised if this game is shrine forward instead of temple forward, because I feel like that was the bigger thing that people had an issue with, more so than stamina and weapon durability, is that people were like, I miss these. Like the closest thing was the divine beasts, but even that, like it was a really kind of like catered down, or what am I trying to say? It was like a watered down version of the
The
temples.
divine beast just felt ho hum, right?
Yeah.
Like there was nothing really dynamic about, like each one had a distinct thing about it that felt like a Zelda game, but like there was what, 3 of them?
Four.
Okay. 4 of them. But like they weren't like traditional dungeons, like they were fairly simple to get through. The more dungeon heavy, puzzle heavy shit was all the shrines, and you kind of had to do the shrines if you wanted to get into a place in which you could really do anything. Like that's how you built up your stamina. That's how you built up your hearts. Like you had to complete them. It's kind of forced upon you. And like wasn't a huge fan of the way that the shrines functioned. And I think like then once I tacked on like the weapon degradation, it also just was like, I get it, I understand it, but like this isn't, I don't know, this is not for me. Whereas, like, I think that this has more of a potential if maybe we change up some stuff. Like, definitely the fuse mechanic and the ultra hand kind of stuff, like, and ascend, like, that actually makes it seem really cool. Like, they're going
Yeah,
to
I
do
agree.
some really cool things here. And, like, the way that you play the game can be very different. That excites me. Like, that gives me kind of like Elden Ring style vibes where, like, I can approach encounters differently than like I'm forced into doing, which don't get wrong, like you could technically do that on the original Breath of the Wild, but like not in the same level as I think like this is showing, is like you can really do a lot of really cool things. So I think that I'm on board with playing this.
Yeah, something that
So
excited me, I'm trying to find it in the scrub, is that like it seems like enemies can also use
yeah,
fuse weapons. Yeah, so like this one here, this I forget what they're called. It's a doesn't matter.
construct.
Construct. Yes, it's a construct. This construct has a fused weapon that like makes this like door into a fan essentially, and he like blows Link off of the sky island. And so he's like, "Oh, well, I guess I have to go back to the ground level now," which is like that's cool. I like that the enemies seem to kind of think like Link does, and so that seems fun. It's I don't know. I will say, for the most part, this got me even more excited for Tears of the Kingdom. At the same time, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'm a little disappointed at how much this just looks like Breath of the Wild to me. Like
It
my
looks just like it.
my biggest fear for Tears of the Kingdom is that it's just more Breath of the Wild. Like ultimately, that'll still be an amazing experience. Very possibly could be my game of the year, but because of what they did with Breath of the Wild, I'm a fool if I don't kind of expect them to go do kind of like a similar type of jump. I don't know. Maybe I'm a fool to expect that, but I feel like it like that's a fair kind of next step to assume. And a lot of what they have shown today does look like it's taking Breath of the Wild to the next level. And it's like Tony in the chat, can't wait to watch people break this game wide open. Terry, it's going to be insane what people do in this game. To that degree, they are taking it to the next level. To that degree, they are saying, instead of let's change these things that didn't work in Breath of the Wild, let's add to them and make them make sense and make them work in this new game with Fuse, with Ultra Hand, with Ascend. So that excites me. But I don't know. What I saw, there was at the very end, Anuma does say an unfamiliar Hyrule. So I'm hopeful that this isn't just the same map from Breath of the Wild, but like it looks a lot like Breath of the Wild to me. And so my biggest fear is that this is just Breath of the Wild with some things to do in the sky. And I didn't see enough to necessarily quell that fear, but
Mm.
I did see enough to make me excited for these new features and kind of to see where that goes. Because I mean, in only 13 minutes, they only kind of scratched the surface, I think, about what this game will be able to do. Some thoughts from our audience I put out on Instagram today to see what people thought. A friend of the show, Greg, just said Legend of Zelda Nuts and Bolts, which I never played Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, but I assume that I heard of some other people online. I guess like the fuse mechanic maybe potentially is something you could do in Nuts and Bolts, something like that. And then Mouth of the South, Liz McLean says, okay, this game is about to take my entire attention span. The fuse ability is so dope. It gives so much more function to random shit enemy drops. And the fucking eyeball arrow detachment is dope because I'm the worst archer on the planet. Infusing random shit to make stronger weapons is sick. Ultra Hand is insanity. Literally, we out here making Frankenstein's dog. This game is about to own me, homie, is what she said. And that she touches on a point that really impressed me, which was the fusing of the arrows. That looks awesome to be able to make homing arrows with the eyeballs. Because like one thing that always frustrated me about Breath of the Wild is that by the end of the game, my inventory was fucked. I had 300 Keese eyeballs and wings and fucking choo-choo jelly and all these things that I never touched. And it seems like those things actually will serve a purpose in this game, which is, that's cool. I'm glad that they're kind of doubling down on that and making it like Fallout 4. I feel like tried to do this with like its base building and like make things make sense. And it just like didn't land.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm excited overall, but I'm surprised. I'll be honest, Cayman. I was expecting you to come in here and be like, more Breath of the Wild, not interested. So
yeah, and I think, and that's the thing is like, I was joking with you, is like it's gonna get weird because like this does look just like Breath of the Wild. Like there's really no graphical changes in the slightest. Just the map is now vertical, so there's a question of like curious about like, is this the same size map that we got in Breath of the Wild? And now we have like a second map on top of it, which is interesting. It just, I don't know. Like, I am curious. Like, if I don't enjoy the game playing it, I know for a fact I'm going to enjoy watching people break the fuck out of this game.
The absolute fuck out of this
Some of the best speed runs I've ever watched are people just breaking the fuck out of Legend of Zelda. Like, it is so weird to watch like them just destroy that.
I still see insane videos pop up on Twitter that are new of people just like all with the like the gravity mechanics and just like, yeah. So the fact that that game is still has legs on it about what people can do, I feel like this game is going to have legs for fucking years. Here's my question. I have two questions for you.
Sure.
My first question is, do you think we're going to get mounts in this game in the sky? Like, do you think we're going to go the Skyward Sword route where like we get a fucking bird that we can fly around on at all?
I would assume so. It probably won't be something you get until later in the game, but like, yeah, for sure. I think that you'll get those. And this also, okay, hear me out.
I'm listening.
Kind of crazy.
I feel like this is going to lead into my second question.
Switch 2? Is that your second question?
That's exactly,
yes. This makes me feel even more like we will get a new Switch at the end of the year.
Like, do you think that this is it? Maybe not at first, where like GameCube to Wii U was like it's coming out on both, and that's how they. And same with Twilight Princess. That's how they marketed it. They're not marketing it as coming out on both, but I feel like if we're getting Switch 2 later this year, it's got to be like, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Will we play?
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember though, like when the first Breath of the Wild launched on the Wii U.
Yeah. That's right.
So
the dead Wii U.
It performed fine, but it performed much better. And even then, performing much better was also like we're melting. There's all those stories about how like the Switch was warping because of like how that was working. So like I could definitely see this being another situation where they're like, yeah, it comes out in May. And then like a couple weeks later, they're gonna be like, or like a month or two later, they're gonna be like, because it's gonna be a fucking gangbuster sales. They're gonna be like, we're launching a Switch Pro 2, and guess what? The Switch Pro 2 will also have Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom. So
and
like
it launches first in Ireland.
Yeah, so like I could definitely see them doing that, but like I think, but that like hammers home the original point of like I am worried that the Switch's hardware is going to struggle with all of these new mechanics unless they fundamentally change a lot of stuff that they haven't said, which goes back to the point we were talking about of like removing shrines and having some
Sure.
more other different type of mechanic that basically lessens the burden on the hardware, because the Switch at this point in its life cycle should be dead now. We should be get like last year, technically the Switch should have died.
Sure, but when it's this fucking successful, they're like, let's milk it. I
Yeah.
do wonder if when this comes out in May, if it'll get bad press that like if you're playing on the OG Switch, it's not going to run well. I get because like the Switch OLED doesn't have stronger hardware. It just has a better screen. But like I wouldn't be surprised if like there is a little bit of stronger shit in there that
Mm.
and it just even if it's not stronger, it's just newer. It's just might run better. And I fear I really hope that that's not the case. But if it is, I bet you are then like 100% correct that Switch 2 is around the corner and this game will be on it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because they're releasing a special edition.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of another thing that I'm like, maybe my predictions are not right. Like maybe, you know, why would you do that? Why would you release unless you're trying to milk it still?
Well,
Which would bring in the next point, which is I think my prediction was like they're going to announce a Switch 2, but like all of your Switch games will still play on it and you will still be able to play most games on it. It's just going to run a lot better and look a lot better on the next version for a couple of years, kind of like what they've been doing with like PlayStation 4 and the
yeah,
Xboxes, where it's like, yeah, it's cross generational. You can still play your games here, but like ultimately in a couple of years, the Switch 2 is just going to have games. And the thing is, I think what we're not talking about, which is the bigger issue, I think at play here, is that Nintendo is at this point, if they want to just be like, no, we're not making a new console. This is selling so well. Why would we? You're holding your developers back from being
sure,
able to make even bigger, even better games because you're trying to make them like develop things for an antiquated system.
sure.
So you are essentially in a good place because if you're in-house developers, like the team behind Mario and Zelda, and you know they've got some other developers too, like they'll be fine. They can continue just doing the same shit they're doing right now, just for the same console. But the thing is, other developers, unless you're an indie developer, they're no longer making games. Not that they really were before, but like they're not going to make any new games for the Switch. They can't. They're going to have to pull full teams to design a game specifically to run on antiquated hardware.
Sure. I don't know though. Like I feel like with the install base being over 120 million at this point, like maybe there's still just so much money there that even though it's technically on antiquated hardware, it's worth the investment because your audience is so fucking big compared to I mean, even the PlayStation 5 right now, like there's a lot of people on the PlayStation 5, but it's nothing compared to the Switch. But I don't know. Yeah, like I do think though that like the key, and I think the reason that they can get away with it is that I will be shocked if it's not just a Switch but better. Like I so meaning every game works on it. It doesn't matter if it's for the Switch or the Switch 2, it'll work. It's going to be Joy-Con based. It's just the hardware is stronger and better. Because also I feel like every day that we don't hear about Mario, a new Mario, tells me that the reason that we're not is because it is being made for Switch 2. Because what I bet is there will be games that only work on Switch 2 and not on Switch, but every game that comes out on Switch would come out also on Switch 2. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I don't it's too at some point you're right that like even though the install base is massive, when game like at some point you gotta move on.
You're not wrong. I think the something that you said is interesting about the Mario not releasing. Like we haven't heard anything about a new Mario. Both Odyssey and Breath of the Wild released the same year.
Right.
Same alongside Horizon Zero Dawn,
Yeah, rest in
which is
peace.
so fucking wild to me that Horizon Zero Dawn launched the same time as those games.
Yeah. Some people
Um,
say one of the top 4 best open world games of all time.
that's true, actually. So I think the thing is, it's interesting you say that because a lot of times what Nintendo does is they like to package Mario in with a console release.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked. The reason why we haven't heard about Mario is because they are waiting to drop Mario as the console launch title for the Switch 2. Same time though, like I think it goes back to like the original point that like I think we also have to take it in consideration that eventually consoles wear down.
Sure.
The wear and tear has its effect. I have been lucky enough, thank God, that I've never had to upgrade a console. Like, I take that back. I had one instance in which I had to upgrade my PlayStation 3. I had the original Fat Boy.
Yep. Yeah,
and then the disk drive burned out. And so, but that was more of like the disk drive burned out. But I never upgraded my PlayStation 4 to a PlayStation 4 Pro. And like if they say like, hey, we're releasing a PlayStation 5 Pro, I'm not gonna upgrade that either. Like it just seems silly to me. Like I no shade to anyone out there, but like what I think works better for Nintendo in this is like eventually at a certain point, we're gonna run into people who are going to say like, hey, this is great and all, but like I've already upgraded to the OLED. Like I'm not gonna keep buying Switches. So unless you're saying like you're to your audience, like, hey, you guys really need to get rid of your old Switch. My old Switch still runs perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I've had it for like 7 years. Okay. It runs totally fine. So I have no issues with it. I'm not worried about it in the slightest. But the thing is, though, is like if I don't upgrade, then Nintendo's also not really doing anything. Like they can't really get me.
Sure.
Now I will say I would love to upgrade to the OLED just to get that
Are you kidding
boy.
me? If you're watching video, like I pulled up, they also announced, which The Verge didn't mention in their write up. There's a Switch OLED special edition for this. There's also a Pro controller and a case, and it is fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, the thing is fucking dope looking. So like I would love to. Like but the thing is like for me to upgrade at this point, you would have to tell me like, Cayman, you need to upgrade because we're not getting another Switch for 3 years.
Right.
Then I might be like, yeah, sure. But at the same time, I'm also like, well, fuck that. If I'm going to upgrade and spend that type of money, then I'll just get a Steam Deck that can play all tons of shit on it.
Yeah.
So like, why would I upgrade to an OLED when I could spend that same money to get a Steam Deck and be fine? Or get it, get the new Xbox so I can play Starfield when it comes out and it like actually run the way it should. And so I think that's where Nintendo, like they have to. There's no world in which Nintendo can't. Or like there's no world in which Nintendo can remain just being like the Switch is the Switch. This is all you're going to get for years.
Yeah, I agree.
It just won't happen.
Guess we'll have to wait and see. Let us know what you think. Do you think we're going to be getting a Switch 2 later this year? Do you think we're not? Do you think where the fuck is Mario? You know, where is he? Tell us.
Where is he?
And are you going to be getting this Switch OLED? Because I'll tell you what, right now, Cayman, I'm talking to Rose. I'm like, Rose, I think you might need to switch OLED.
To upgrade.
I think she needs to switch OLED. Did I already pre-order it knowing that like I can cancel before it comes out just in case I can convince her? Yes, I did. Is that really irresponsible?
Yeah.
You're fucking right. It is.
But fine.
Hey, I mean, at any point before April 28th, when this releases, I can go to Best Buy and say, you know what? Keep it. But balls in my court. Balls in my court, Anuma. Balls in my court. Well, folks, that's our show. Cayman.
Yes, sir.
As always a pleasure to have you here, even when you're entering different realities every 5 seconds on your.
It's pretty fun, right?
On your camera. It's great. Next week we might be talking about a TMNT game and multiverses, apparently having been in a beta this whole time, but we didn't have time to talk about it this week. And also, I didn't update the calendar, but one thing I do know is that Sifu is out now on Xbox and PC, and there's a new mode, Arenas. So if you have it on PlayStation already, or if you haven't been able to get it because you don't have a PlayStation, it is out now, unless you have a Switch. Although, no, it's on Switch too, I think. But yeah, that's our show, Cayman. Cayman, tell the folks at home where they can find you, Save Trash Cinema, any final parting words you have.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at the Dumpster Boy. You can find STC Save Trash Cinema. You can find it at Save Trash Cinema on all socials. Once again, we have a new episode out that you can listen to right now where we cover the most controversial film of all time, banned in no less than 46 countries, a Serbian film. So if you want to know why it's been banned in so many countries, why don't you go give it a listen? It's a very interesting, it's a very different type of episode too. I think if I've ever done anything like that before. So if you want to check it out, you can go find it on literally all streaming platforms. It's just an audio podcast. So like put it on when you're driving to work or when you're just doing whatever. I don't know.
How about a Serbian word for you, Cayman?
Hit me.
Polachinka. That means pancakes. I learned that once.
Oh,
that's pancakes in Serbian.
That's better than.
Do they talk about Polachinka at all in a Serbian film?
No, unfortunately, there's no.
Some things get pancaked, I think, but they don't talk about pancakes. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow us at Spot Games Pod, or on Instagram and TikTok at Spotlight Games Pod. And of course, we are on Twitch at twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod, and YouTube as well, youtube.com/at Spotlight Games Pod. Always a pleasure. Until we meet again, folks, keep just fucking doing it.
Keep fucking doing it.
Just keep fucking doing it, baby.